Well, hi there, and welcome to our summer online devotionals. My name is Nick. If you don't know me, I'm part of the leadership team. And here at Christ Central, we've decided to take the month of July to slow down a little bit. We're not going to be gathering here every Sunday at the Salvation Army. Instead, we've decided to be gathering in local parks from 10 till 12 every Sunday together. And those times we will simply get together, fellowship, talk to one another, get to know one another, ask how each others are doing, maybe eat some food. And one of the things we want to provide for conversation for those picnics and those times together is some online devotional content. And so for the next 5 weeks, we're going to look at 5 different topics. Things that are going to hopefully challenge you, that are going to encourage you, that are going to build you up, and can lead you to knowing Jesus better this summer. And what I wanted to do in this introductory video is just to give you some kind of context really as to why we're looking at these specific topics. And I wanted to start off by saying, starting a church or being involved in a church in New York City is not easy. It's been a challenge for us. It's been up and down, there's been highs, there's been lows. But you know what? Planting churches in New York City is a lot easier than many other parts of the world. And I wanted to talk to you briefly about one of those places in China, because China, the Christian church, has been under severe persecution for many, many years. In fact, religious freedom was only granted by the government in 1982. That was even before I was born. And it's still actually illegal to hold any kind of faith if you are in a position of government. Now, despite religious freedom being legally granted up into the 1990s, Christians were severely physically persecuted. Leaders were arrested, tortured, killed. Some just disappeared. And the government also put heavy restrictions on who and where you could buy or sell Bibles. Now, whilst the persecution eased a little bit in the 2000s, churches were allowed to publicly meet. But those churches who were allowed to publicly meet were severely controlled by the government. And they put restrictions upon them on what they could teach, what they couldn't teach, what they could sing, how their services looked, etc. And then within the last 10 years, the Chinese government has been, to quote one journalist, on a mission to gain complete control of the church. Now, many church buildings have been either completely destroyed or have had any sense of Jesus removed from them. Images of Christian political leaders are now often found hung in churches in the place of the cross. And worship is not about singing to God and to Jesus and thanking him for his grace. Worship in China, in the government-controlled church, is now about singing songs to the Chinese Communist Party. Now, it's in this context, over these last 20, 30 years, that the secret and underground church in China has begun to grow and blossom at an exponential rate. And now it's judged to have over 100 million believers in China, now worshipping Jesus in secret, in underground homes, in underground churches, away from the watching Chinese government. Now, I tell you this because we're actually part of a family of churches called New Frontiers. And just this last year, 700 core leaders from our family of churches gathered together in Turkey. Leaders from all over the world, from Africa, from Asia, from Europe, from America. And they gathered together for a key conference where the leaders could get together and spend time together. And one of the guest speakers that they had there was one of the main leaders from the Chinese underground church. And he was leading one session. And what they asked him to do at this session was to answer the question, what is the secret to the growth of the Chinese church? They asked him, what have you been doing to see this incredible movement flourish and bear so much fruit in spite of all the persecution that you faced? And as the leader stood up to preach, you can imagine the whole room was filled with anticipation. Everyone looking for that marketing strategy, for that silver bullet or golden bullet, whatever it is, to say, what can I do? What's he going to tell me that I can go and put in place back in my hometown to see my church flourish like the Chinese church? And so the leader stood up and he said, well, I want to answer the question by saying, we teach our people to do these 5 things. You can imagine everyone leaned in, got their notebooks at the ready, expecting some special magical thing. And then the leader said this: we teach our people firstly just to read and memorize the Bible. We teach our people to pray daily. We teach our people to rejoice in trials and suffering. We teach our people fourthly to share their faith every day. And we teach people fifth to expect God to move. And as the leaders shared these and started to speak about them, there was a collective sense of a humble realization that actually Christianity isn't complicated. Yeah. Christianity is often made to be complicated, but in its reality, it's very simple. It's about abiding in Jesus. It's about reading the word, praying, sharing the faith. The message from the underground church is simple. Prioritize your walk and relationship with Jesus. Be intentional with how you follow him. And then you will see fruit, both in your local church and in your individual life. And so, this is the introduction. Because this summer, we want to take the next 5 weeks to look at these 5 building blocks from the underground church that they prioritize, that they teach their persecuted believers to do. And we want to ask ourselves, how are we doing in each of these areas? Each week will contain just a little bit of information, some scriptures, some quotes. We're going to hopefully have some videos from people within the community about how they do those things. And then each week will end with a little bit of a challenge to say, how are you doing this? So as we gather over this summer, as we take time to watch these videos, to process them, to digest the teaching involved, we are really praying that actually this would just be a key summer for us, just to reset, to come back to our foundations, to fix our eyes on Jesus and grow together. So, I hope you enjoy.